third in a series of community engagement meetings that we're having here. We do have a number of people attending on Zoom. That's the little camera right there. There's 12 or 15. So I just need to do a quick check to make sure everybody can hear me out in that online world.
You're good,
Daniel, can you hear me okay? All right. The meeting is being recorded. So that's so that everybody can have a chance to check out the meeting afterwards. If they were not in attendance, if for some reason they weren't able to check out the meeting or be here, you're able to watch these online. I'll show you that website and that portal here in a little while. And then just as a reminder, if you missed previous meetings and you wanted to catch up or see what we talked about, those are also available in that online portal. Agenda tonight, we have a couple things we want to go through. Some of it is information that's been presented before. Some of it is new with the introduction of focus groups. We're going to ask you to participate in a survey, again, as we have in previous meetings. Some of those ideas to stimulate discussion is what we call those. Those have been modified a little bit based on previous input or results from the community. We will go through those previous survey results so everybody can see where those are at and kind of go from there. Your team that the school board has hired to lead you through this process. My name is Derek O'Neill. I'm with Alley Pointer Maquetto Architecture. We have Boyd Jones was hired as your construction manager for this process. We also have a couple of engineers. ETI Engineering is your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and technology. And then we also have Larson Engineering as a civil engineer. And then obviously you guys as a community, the communities that make up the school district here. A couple of goals from this process. These are things that we've heard through community meetings, walkthroughs with administration and facilities teams, safety and security for students, provide environments that enhance and improve the educational experience for all students and staff, maximize existing square footage and space, enhance community pride in the schools, move forward with a community-based solution, and then any others that come out of this for discussion. Our process is very transparent, very open, and wants to get all this community input and involvement to make sure that any of the solutions that come out of this have buy-in from the community and that everybody understands that. Where are we now? Where do we want to be? How do we get there? You'll hear me talk about that over and over and over each one of these meetings. I'm going to repeat that. We're going to go through that, the steps that it takes to get to this, to an end piece. We vision, we develop solutions, we take those solutions back, we listen to your input, we revisit those solutions and ideas until we come to something that generally has consensus in the community. So we've done the where are we now? That's the baseline piece. If you've been to previous meetings, we've shown you the score sheets on that, the list of potential issues and some costs associated with that. The where do we want to be? This is where we are at right now with these ideas to stimulate discussion. So we've done some surveys related to that. We've gathered feedback. There's a facilities committee that meets and also sees that information. We take that input and we keep going through this process and explaining these concepts and getting this input until we get to a spot where everybody, for the most part, can agree on how to move forward with a solution. Once we get down to about two ideas here, two concepts for potential implementation, that's the how do we get there piece. What is it going to cost? Is it something we do now? Is it something we plan for in 5 years? Is it a master plan that we are adopting and saying that's our 20-year plan, but we're going to bite off this chunk of it now? That's the how do we get there piece of it. Our process is 8 steps. We assess current deficiencies and needs. So we've done that. Provide comparable information, evaluate any operational deficiencies, educate diverse community committee, that's the facilities committee, create options and scenarios based on this assessment, focus group priorities and community input. Again, we're doing the surveys at the end of this meeting to get the community input. We're introducing you to the focus groups tonight so that we can hopefully have people willing to sign up for those focus groups and help us put together priorities, needs, and then the wants on that. Looking at sources and uses of funding. We have your financial consultant, Piper Sandler, who has been here and presented kind of a high overview of what you have for funding mechanisms to pay for any facilities improvements. There's a lot of additional information related to that. And there's also I'm going to introduce you to a financial focus group with the intent that that group can help then present additional financial information as we move forward. We want to generate a master plan and implementation concepts. Again, that's the where do we want to be? How do we get there piece? And it takes several times. It takes hearing this over and over. It takes me presenting several of these ideas multiple times to get to a point where we have some sort of a consensus on moving forward. At the end of this process, at the end of these meetings, we would hope we've got a master plan that we want to see implemented, that this facilities committee believes that they've gone through this process, they've heard the community input, they're going to listen to all that and make a recommendation to the school board. The school board will hopefully feel that, again, this process of gathering community input, open community meetings, that we will be able to make a recommendation to the school board on how to proceed. Any questions on that process? Just to recap a little bit where we've been, we've looked at the 3 school buildings you have, the elementary building, brand new building, 43,000 square feet, a number of things that we've heard related to that building, but again, nothing that's in a very immediate need or any kind of thing that needs to be implemented in the next 12 months. You'll hear me talk about immediate, mid-range, and long-term implementation concepts as a part of this, and that's where we're at with this. So about the only thing that really comes up is just the need for possibly looking at a secure entry and possibly changing that around as a potential goal with that project. This is how it scores out. So we have the 4 categories that we look at on every building: site analysis, exterior, interior, and MEPT. Again, I mentioned that earlier, but MEPT is mechanical, electrical, plumbing technology. Architects and construction guys, we like our little acronyms. So if I get through here and I'm telling you, I'm throwing out an acronym and you don't know what it is, say, hey, Derek, what is that? What is that exactly? Your middle school building here, 40,000 square feet, built in 1950, with some improvements, getting over 20 years here on some of those improvements. Number of things that we heard related to condition of the facilities, things that need to be addressed. Probably the biggest one is some mechanical systems over on the classroom wing, and those not necessarily operating efficiency, short cycling just a little bit. We've identified some a cost range for things that need to happen up to the next 10 years. And then if you did a complete renovation on the building, you can see where that cost would be there up in the top right. Again, here's how you score. This building does not score obviously as well as your brand new elementary building. That's to be expected based on the age of the facility, but it's nothing that we're concerned about. Just based on other schools in the area, you have a great facilities crew here doing maintenance as much as they can to keep the buildings going and keeping them maintained. Your high school building, 80,000 square feet, built in 1968, with an addition then also pushing over 30 years now. This is again a list of things that we saw issues in the building. You have a cost range of 7.2 to 9.3 for some of those over the next 10 years, with a complete renovation in that $14 to $18 million range. And again, these are high level. I'm kind of glossing over all these bullet points because I'm not sure that everybody wants to sit here and talk about concrete that needs to be replaced, roofing areas that need to be updated, those sorts of things. You've had reports in the past that have shown you those sorts of things. We were hired as an architect to kind of take a step back, as a design team, to take a step back and create a master plan. What is the long-term vision for you guys as a school district before you start implementing these little pieces, so that we don't, so that you're not spending money somewhere that you wish you would have had that money to implement something else. You have an order by which to implement and a goal that you're trying to get to. So again, the high school building, back to the high school building, the 4 areas that we look at in the overall score. This shows you your 3 buildings on a chart. So if you want to, as I mentioned, you can download a PDF of this presentation. You can see the different descriptors on there on why they score, how they score. But basically a 10 is a brand new building, and a 5 is a building somewhere around components that are nearing the end of their life, whether it's a mechanical system, a roof, something like that. But it's age of the facility and conditions of the systems on how that is scored out right there. We do also take a look at other comparable things. You'll hear me use the term top down and bottom up from a programmatic use, right? So we have the sticks and the bricks and the pieces that make up the facilities. Then it's how are you using the facilities? So a bottom up method is we take every single space and the square footage of every single space, and we analyze that from the bottom up. How is it being used? What are the programs? What are the instructional activities that are being done in those spaces? And then a top down takes a look at overall square footage and a calculation on a per square foot student basis. So if we were going to build you a brand new building, for example, if you came to us and said, hey, we want a brand new school, we'd look at your enrollment, and then we'd apply a factor of 200 square feet per student. And that's our baseline for what you would need for square footage for a brand new school building. Now, there are things that move that square footage number up and down. Maybe you have a great need for some particular program, an extra auxiliary gym for archery, for example, or an auditorium because you have a great performing arts program and you want a 700 seat auditorium. Those are things that then we adjust that programmatic square footage back and forth on. This top down look looks at every single school building and the square footage and starts to show you capacities. So with your enrollment at 621, where you're at with 227 in your elementary, 143 here at the middle school, and 201 at the high school, this is where you're at with your capacities on square footage. So your elementary building is over capacity with the number of students that are in that building. A lot of that is related to programmatic spaces that were not developed when that building was built. You lack a lot of storage in that facility. Your classrooms are about at the smallest size we'd recommend for those elementary kiddos. And so that building is one that is pretty well maxed out. Your middle school building here has a capacity for 215, and you have an enrollment of 143 in this building. At your high school building, you have a capacity for 402, and you have 201 students enrolled in that building. So that tells us that there may be some options before you would ever look at, say, doing an addition to your elementary building, perhaps you should look at moving some spaces or kids around to take advantage or maximize that existing square footage. Does that make sense to everyone? Great. So at the past couple of meetings, we've asked you to participate in some surveys. We've had hard copies. We've had the preferred way is to answer the survey using your smartphone. We calculate all that data. We see what that tells us. The smartphones are a great way for you to answer with some anonymity so that you're not feeling pressured to say you like one particular solution over another, but everybody else over in that corner is saying that's the direction they want to go, but you maybe really think this is a great idea. So that the surveys give us a way to create that anonymity and give you an opportunity to give your input and voice your opinion on this. So this shows you where everybody's been from meeting 1 to meeting 2. We're just tracking the participation based on the communities. So not a lot of change overall in the participation based on location. As far as the aspirations question, everybody wants to retain quality staffing. That's the #1 piece. Number 2, high quality education while maintaining a small rural school feel. And 3rd, update current buildings and prepare for future growth. So it's important to remember, we want to keep good staff, we want to recruit good staff, and we want a high quality education with that small school feel. Managing concerns, recruitment and retention of top educators, maintaining a budget that meets student needs. And the 3rd is the financial ability to maintain a quality education. So we're hearing a lot about wanting to have the right programs for students, and a lot about making sure we can still afford to pay the teachers and recruit those teachers effectively. Assigning priorities, safety and security for students and staff. So that's maybe why on the elementary building, we prioritize that secure entry component. Second, improve existing classroom space, creation of collaboration space. And then third, updating your mechanical and your electrical systems. So these are all of your results from the community survey. Inspiration, technology, STEAM and STEM, and collaboration. So you might be saying, what is STEAM and what is STEM? That's some of those acronyms that I mentioned earlier. STEM is science, technology, engineering, mathematics. When we add the A in there for STEAM, we add the arts into it because there's a lot of components of that work together. Some comments. There's a lot of comments that we get in these community surveys. A lot of them are very good and help us further define how we're going to move forward and how we're going to present things to everyone in the communities here. We see comments on making sure the athletic and the activities facilities and spaces are in this process. Maintain what exists. Financially stable district that meets the needs for all students. Wanting to make sure we keep all facilities and creating that option for new classes. At some point in there, when we get into the financial focus group, you'll see that there's sometimes a bit of a struggle in school districts of your size between adding new programs and maintaining a bunch of building space and paying for those teachers. There's a correlation because there's just there's only so much money. Let's see, what are some other comments on here? The most efficient use of space and resources is to maximize the opportunities for our staff and students. Maintaining, updating existing buildings and keeping levels in each building the same as it is now. Again, a lot of these comments you can find on the PDF. If you want to download that and read through every comment, you certainly have the ability to do that. So when we went through the choices, we gave you 5 choices at that last community meeting. Remain and maintain all buildings, renovate all 3 buildings, renovate and reorganize. So the reorganize piece was moving kids from this building to the high school building and creating a 7-12 facility. This becomes a 4-5-6 building. And then your elementary, you relieve some space in your elementary building by that becoming just a pre-K through 3 building. You had option D, which is consolidate to 1 or 2 buildings. We've got some further options related to that for you guys to look at here tonight. And then option E is a brand new facility. Your second choice, you can begin to see how the responses start to disperse amongst those choices and those options. And again, a third choice, we asked you to provide a third choice, and then which one would you eliminate? A all new facility, and then closely followed by the remain and maintain buildings. When we look at financial pieces in your school district here, there's a number of tools that you can use for facilities improvements. Save dollars for the penny sales tax. That's a statewide sales tax. Those dollars come back to you, you as a school district. There's a voted pebble. The blue star there means you do not have that at the moment, but that is a mechanism that you can use to pay for facilities improvements. I believe when your financial consultant was here, that could mean up to around $3 million worth of money that could be generated for a project of some kind. You have options for a property tax. They presented a $2.70 levy, and all of those combined, what that means to you from a dollar standpoint on getting things implemented or fixed. There's also an opportunity for energy audits. We can use the utility companies and any rebates. For example, your mechanical systems here at the building here. We would want to evaluate those existing systems. If there are any upgrades to those that would qualify for rebates, is that a better solution to get implemented here? Same would go for lighting in all of your facilities, any of that needs to be any of that needs to be improved. And then are there any areas for private donations? Gymnasiums, auditoriums, activities fields, those kinds of things that can be used with private funding to help upgrade those particular facilities. Related to costs, this is something that I like to show everyone so they understand just where costs are at in the construction world. Right now in 2021, we have pretty crazy construction world. Lots of materials are going up and up every day, if not every hour. We use 2019 as a baseline in this particular chart. That's the last good year of construction budgeting and dollars that we have. 2020 started to throw things off a little bit for us. So a project that was $10 million in 2019 was $7.3 million in 2011. And that same $10 million project from the 2019 timeframe is going to be 12.3, 12.4 by 2025. And you can see that's just a pretty level percentage of escalation as you move across there. I guarantee we're going to see some spikes in that when this chart comes out for next year based on construction industry trends that we're seeing this year as far as labor, lack of labor, and where the material costs are going on things. So ideas to stimulate discussion. Again, we've got the 5 options with a 1 and a 2 there on option number D. And we're going to ask you in a survey here again to go back through and revisit these options and help us get this so that we can get narrowed down and narrow the focus down. Once we get that focus narrowed down, that's when we'll start to develop additional programmatic and detail in these plans and be bringing them back to you. So option D, with the consolidate to 1 or 2 buildings, we've presented some additional thoughts related to that. And then idea E, we've further defined as an all new building on a neutral site. So again, option A, remain and maintain. We're just going to keep going as we are. Again, the school board hasn't made any decisions on what they want to do or how they want to move forward. They're not saying we're going for a bond issue or a pebble vote or anything like that. That's why we're doing this process to get input from the community to see where there is support. So one option is you just keep going down the road as you are. We're not changing students in any of the buildings or anything like that. Option B is renovating and updating all schools. And that's going through that list of costs that we showed up in the top right corner there, those costs that you may need, that you could expect over the next 10 years to input into the facilities. That's trying to package them into one project and update all of your school facilities. Again, not changing any of the programmatic functions or reorganizing any of the students. Idea C, this one is where we start to, again, reorganize and maximize that existing square footage. So instead of in 5 years building an addition on the elementary building, as I mentioned, you may reorganize and capture more space here and put that effort in that program, move some of that to your high school. So that may be a 7-12 facility. Why would you want to do that? There's a lot of reasons why a 7-12 facility, for example, works together. You don't have any type of a CTE program here at your middle school for your junior high kids. CTE is career technical education. So that's your welding, your shop class, your industrial arts, those sorts of things. If you have all of that under one roof, you have one shop, particularly for a school district of your size, you have one area for all of those students to go to class in. So you've built one shop, you have one great art room, you share band and music rooms, a lot of those things that can be shared efficiently there under one roof. The same goes for your elementary. So I'm proposing in this scenario, getting some efficiencies on your 7-12 side, but maybe you lose some efficiencies with your elementary kids being split up. between two buildings. Idea D1 is how we're calling it, and that's consolidate everything to Greenfield. Again, you've got an elementary building, and then you have a junior senior high building. So a 7-12 building and a pre-K 6 building. Do the same thing here in Fontenelle. Again, these are just high level concepts. You're just maximizing the existing space you have in a site in order to be able to put everything under one roof. And idea E would be build an all new building on a neutral site somewhere. This is your school building out in the middle of a giant cornfield that's not attached to a particular town, that makes sense from a transportation standpoint. We also want to introduce focus groups. We'd like to have some further participation from the community in these focus groups. So there's 7 focus groups here. We would love to have some people sign up to participate in these particular focus groups. STEAM and CTE, so that's your science, technology, engineering, arts, math. CTE is your career technical education. Information technology, learning environments, community pride, athletics and activities, behind the scenes, and financial. So your STEAM and CTE, that's your career programs, your welding, your building trades, those sorts of things, your industrial arts that we were talking about there just a little bit. So if you have an interest in that, maybe you're an employer, you own a business in the area, you're interested in making sure you've got some students that are learning how to weld. Maybe you want to build trade homes through your school in order to take care of some of the housing needs in the different communities. That's a focus group that you would be interested in. Your information technology group, again, outside of your elementary building, you have buildings that were built before there was ever a thought of this amount of technology in your school buildings. What does that mean? BYOD, bring your own device. That's a trend we're starting to see where students are learning from each other, and you use your own device in the school as opposed to a one-to-one type computer program. Your learning environment. So these are the classrooms, breakout spaces, the furniture that goes along with it. At some point, as we move this down the road, you'll have the ability to have a test drive of a classroom furniture setup that helps you see the different ways you can use an existing classroom. You can go from your traditional stand, sit education style to smaller group learning, one-on-one learning, and we help you get some sample furniture in here, let the students test it out, the teachers, and we get some feedback on that. Community pride and focus groups. Nodaway Valley first, what's your school brand? Where is it seen? How are you promoting your school within the community? Your athletics and your activities focus groups. Again, we had people respond to the survey that wanted to see the activities and the athletics fields as a part of this process. This is the focus group where you would want to participate in. The behind the scenes, this is your maintenance personnel. If you're interested in the food service piece, transportation, nurses' offices, and how that works in a kind of a post-COVID world, meeting spaces. Sometimes we hear about childcare and daycare components and what those are, why those are important to the schools and the communities. And then a financial focus group. So this is the group that will help present all the different components related to the financing options in the schools, where you stand financially, why we need to do something now, why we may need to wait and do something in 5 years. So those focus groups, we're hoping to get people to sign up for those. Those groups will then present that information related to those topics, and help us go from these are all of our wants down to here's what the needs list is, and then here's the priorities of all of those needs. We've had some discussions with the facilities committee. So again, I mentioned that there's a committee that meets that we also present this information to, gather feedback, have some discussion. We've taken them through an exercise with some small group discussion to help come through some of these questions. I'm going to read these to you because we ask these similarly in the survey here at the end. Considering the scenarios that have been presented in our meetings so far, what options are best to proceed for the school district's sustainability and financial health, and why? Considering the scenarios that have been presented in the meeting so far, what options generate the most support, would generate the most support from the community, and why? If an analysis was performed to the project as far as costs and savings associated with moving to a one campus scenario, would you use the results of that study in making your decision on whether to support this project? What factors do you think are the most important to community members? Maintaining campuses in both Greenfield and Fontenelle, minimizing any property tax increases, improving the school facilities so that the students in the district get the best education possible, maintaining the existing facilities but not spending additional funds to make improvements, or improving the school facilities to make the district more competitive and appealing to the faculty, students, and any others. And then lastly, are there any deal breakers that exist in regards to completing a bond project in this district? For example, nothing will pass if. So those are some questions we want you to think about as we move into the survey component. I'm just curious before we move on, how many people is this their first meeting of this community engagement piece? Okay, so we got a handful of people that haven't been to a meeting before. Some of this I kind of glossed over. I hurried through the process just a little bit to get to this point. So if you have any questions after this meeting, I'm happy to stick around and answer any of them for you. But we would like you to jump into a survey component now. Using your smartphone if you have one. You go to mentimeter.com and you enter this code. If you do not have a smartphone, I have a couple of hard copies up here that I will get to you. Just raise your hand if you need a hard copy.
Solutions, what are you talking about for this one?
Programmatic solutions are your classroom arrangements and your class offerings. So
Okay.
more
care about that.
CTE, that kind of
Oh,
stuff.
I see.
Yep.
Okay,
Mhm.
thanks.
So the great thing about these meetings and this process here is that by showing up and participating, you get to have a voice and you get to help influence that direction that the school district goes in the future. It's a process that is open, transparent, and inclusive. So if you want to participate, you can participate to whatever level you want. If you want to know what's going on, you show up to the meetings, you see the results from the surveys, and you get to help affect that solution moving forward. We don't have another community engagement meeting set up, but the next one that we do, I sure would like to see everybody here bring about 3 of your friends, and then we can break out into small groups, have some good discussion, present some of that discussion, and then also have some hard copies of these plans and ideas to study for a little while longer on a piece of paper, other than just showing it up on a screen for a minute and then asking you to tell us what you like as far as a solution goes. So we really need to get more of the school district community involved in these meetings in order for it to be a great process and a great outcome that puts Nodaway Valley first in this process. We would have a schedule presented in Iowa. Let's say if you did get to a point where you wanted to move forward with a project and you needed to figure out how you're going to fund it. One of the first things would be to consider that voted pebble option and what that does as far as providing money that can be spent on a facilities improvement project. If you want to go somewhere larger than that, the state dictates how many times you can hold a bond issue election during the year. The next one coming up is in September. I don't really believe that we're organized enough here to probably hit anything related to September. There would be another one in November, and then after that is March. One thing to consider in that is if you run a referendum and it fails, you have to wait 6 months. And so there are a number of those dates that just don't align with 6 months. So for example, if you decided, hey, we want to go ahead and do something in September and it failed, that waiting 6 months you would think would logically land you on the March date, but it doesn't. That March date falls shy of that 6 months by just a week or so. So you actually have to wait an entire year before you could run another election. So there are dates that are important to this. And so that's why it's also important to make sure, if you know somebody that has questions about this, bring them to a meeting. Tell them about the website. Let's get some things, get some interest generated in this and get some participation from the rest of the community. So if you do have an opportunity, you can go to the school district's website. They have a link to a facilities site that has all of the past meetings. Again, I mentioned this one's being recorded. All the other meetings have been recorded. You can download slides of the presentation that we've done here tonight. You can also participate in the survey. So let's say somebody is interested in this. Maybe they're at the softball or the baseball game tonight. They can go to that site, watch the presentation, click on the link to participate in the survey, and we can capture those results in this process moving forward. With that said, what do you guys have for questions? And then keep in mind, I've also got some people on Zoom here who may have some questions. So if you do have a question, I'll try and repeat the question and give you an answer so that it gets recorded and captured for everyone here. Just as a show of hands, who is an elected official, school board member, or an employee of the school district? All right. Who has been to all 3 community engagement meetings? Great. What questions does anybody have on the process? Concerns they may have? If there aren't any, we'll see if the Zoom world has any questions.
Not yet.
All right, there's no questions out there. So with that, we're gonna wrap this meeting up. I'll stick around if anybody has a question they wanna ask me one-on-one, and I'll try and get it answered for you. Thank you all for coming. Please bring a friend to the next one.
Hey, Derek.
Yeah.
I have one question. What are the non-electronic ways we post meetings? I think that would be answered by the school.
Non-electronic ways to post meetings. Like regarding these community engagement meetings. I'll have to check with the facilities committee and the school on what their standard procedure is.